Welcome, everyone, to another Chaotic Sports stream. My name is Chris Sarda from Chaotic Sports. And then we've done enough streams now. You're the other third of the Chaotic Sports family until we start adding more assholes to the group. Wayne, at Never Do I Lose with a bunch of underscores.
Why do you make it so difficult? It's never do I lose with underscores.
Every time I read your name, every time I read your Twitter name, I think the same thing. I go, why do you make that so difficult? You should be like Insane Wayne, whatever age you lie to the girls.
ICP, insane clown posse. Wait, what did you just say?
I was gonna say your real birth year, the year I know, because I've known you now for a decade. But it should be Insane Wayne. Whatever age you're telling girl, whatever you.
Cruising for bruising. I never lie about my age. I just look younger than,
That's true. That's true.
Appreciate
you
it.
never lie about your age, though. You literally lied about never lying about your age. But anyway, let's move.
Okay,
let's move on. Let's move on. You're probably right. It was one time, and it was like the week I met you. I was like, that dude told me a completely different age than he told that girl. That's cool. And that was a while ago, so you're good.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we were skating on 30 back then. Now we're way older. Anyway, so a lot to get to. Angelo's just up and skipped the pod. Have you seen a podcast show up?
No.
No, Angelo's ditching out on podcasts. He's probably going to say that it's me, but so in the meantime, we do have the live stream. Eventually I'll figure this out, and we'll figure out how to just make this also a podcast, and we'll put it on audio. Right now, I just wanted to do as much live stream practicing as we can. We've skipped a few weeks too, dude. I wanted to be a little bit more consistent, but we have not been. But hey, we're going into the meat of it, going into the meat of the football season. Some great fights coming up, and in this live stream, we've still never talked NBA. Maybe we talked Harden for a minute. I think we might have talked Harden for a little bit, but in this live stream, we've not talked any NBA, which is fine. Coming up on Christmas is when when the big NBA talk can happen. But
I will say that this is the first time in a long time that I've been super excited before Christmas season. So basketball is in a good place. The NBA is in a good place. A lot of talent spread throughout. A lot of young talent. Luka Doncic, he's phenomenal. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts, different places, different names, and different places. So
yeah, there's just a lot of fun stuff. And then these games matter because seeding is going to matter in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Seeding is going to matter, and there's no super powerhouse out there,
especially the West Coast.
Yeah, that's been like that for 20 years. It was except for LeBron.
Whoa.
So let me get this.
Hating. I just gotta say that's hating on the bad boys, the Piston bad boys, and what was Big Shot, Chauncey Billups and their squad. You know what I'm saying? Give some props.
There was always one good team there, but the seeding didn't matter back in the day. It's mattered less.
Fair.
I'm sure we can find years where it was exciting. So let me open some stuff up, and let me tell the world that we're streaming live here. So we're going to do a lot of football. If people saw the title list, we're going to review some Week 12, the big games. I
got a title for you.
I already titled.
I was going to say we could call it, Cleveland Browns beat Steelers week,
okay.
and Ohio State. Let's little Ohio State beats Michigan week. You know what I'm saying?
Do you want to do?
Go.
It's a big weekend for your state.
Yeah.
Tweet deck. Okay, I'll figure this out. I'll be able to talk to you. I mean, Angelo. If Angelo can do it, if Angelo can text and do a podcast, I can run a stream and tweet shit out, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's I'll tweet while you talk in a minute. But let's get to the meat of the of this podcast, the two defenses, the two best defenses in the NFL, one in each conference, just really proved themselves this week. One of them crushed their opposition because the offense was able to steadily put points on the board, and the other one, even though the offense has been slower and has not done as well, was able to keep another at least playoff team down and take the win. So I'm gonna flip a coin and let you tell me which of those two games you want to talk about first, and we'll mix in playoff implications as we go on.
Okay. How about we talk about the Cowboys?
The Cowboys game first? Okay, good. Yeah, you didn't want to work me up so early, right? Because you know I'm going to get worked up for the Niners. So listen, I'll start the ball rolling here with the Cowboys. I mean, you want to jump on the hate train with Dak and stuff, but you got to give them credit that no matter, or you don't have to give them credit because they lost, but no matter which way you slice it, and defenses, and whether Dak and the Cowboys are good against good teams. I mean, the weather was really bad. So how much do you think the weather played a part in it? Obviously, it played a lot. But in a situation where they played, let's say, in Dallas, how much does the game change?
I think, the running game controls the clock. But with the weather being inclement, I think that it forced the Patriots to defend well and stop that run and force more accuracy from Dak. And not saying that Dak was bad. I think that the team overall and the schemes are very vanilla. I mean, I just think you kind of know what the Cowboys are going to do and when they're going to do it. And defensively, that's an advantage.
You're seeing that a lot. I'll just throw this in. I'll let you finish. But you're seeing that a lot too, though, where it's a little bit more important. Scheme is almost more important now than a lot of quarterback talent, which I know is a little bit controversial because we see Lamar Jackson doing stuff with his feet, and last year we saw Mahomes. So I'm not saying it's 100%, but I think more and more we're seeing that scheme is a little bit more important. And you're saying that Dallas's scheme is actually very basic.
Right. I think when it comes to the intricacies and the complexities of the game, I just had to throw it out there, make it sound like that. But I just think from a strategic standpoint, the game plans aren't aggressively attacking the opposition or the opposing team's defense's weaknesses. I think it's just, hey, they do what they do, and that's it. I think from a chess standpoint, a strategic chess playing standpoint, I just think the team and the concept and what they do, they're a running team first. I mean, that's obvious. But I think
they were last. We're talking about the Cowboys right now, right?
Right.
Well, and I think they were last year. That's not been the case the whole year this year.
Well,
I mean,
I just think creative running. I think there should be some creative running play calls, some stunts, things like that.
Are you saying they should?
Screens.
Are you saying they would be better? And I know the running game has worked in more, but are you saying they would be better if they went back to more of last year, if they were more of a running team? Because in their wins, I think Dak has when Dak's played well, he's played very well. It wasn't like last year where he was that game manager type player, right?
So this is what, I think with anything in life, I think if when I started working for this company, they had us read the Strength Finder. And I think if you maximize your strengths and everybody around you does, you can find the most success. The Cowboys' strength is truly their running game. And I think Dak himself is a runner too. I mean, he can throw the football moderately accurately, but I think if you take a little bit of the concepts that are working for the Ravens right now and apply those to the Cowboys, they could have a little bit more success, a little bit more aggressive running, first downs, getting the first down when it matters from Dak, as well as the play action and a strong running game from Zeke. I just think that was a better look for them offensively.
I think a good question going back to that, because that that actually brings up a more general thing that I've been thinking. In the beginning of the year, we were well into it, like a decade of just passing being the biggest thing, and passing is what mattered, and running backs mattered less, unless you're playing fantasy, of course, but running backs mattered less and less.
I hate when you say that, but continue.
They have mattered less and less, but
I just can't let you get away with saying that.
Not this year. Well, let me finish.
Running backs matter.
They do matter. They've mattered less and less. I mean, from LT.
I hate when you say that. From
LT to don't count this year to last year, it's been about throwing 50 touchdowns. But we're in week 12 now. There are a number of teams that are controlling the game, especially when they're successful, are controlling the game with the running game. It's almost been a bounce back. And I'm not even talking about the Ravens, because the Ravens are playing that dynamic running passing game like that we've seen with some team the last 10 years. But I'm talking the Niners.
Right.
I'm talking the Packers.
You're talking like
when everything's working. I'm talking. Yeah. Well, I mean, the running game's not been that huge. I mean, there's been here and there was, you know what I mean? No one was running the league with a running game.
You use a running game to control the clock.
Yeah, and that's happening a lot more.
To keep by controlling the clock, you keep the opposing offense that it could very well be very good off. You also minimize some of the coverages, and you keep it diverse. So, I mean, ask Aaron Rodgers. He knows that a running back matters because he hasn't had one in ages.
Running back absolutely matters. I never said that. I've said they just started to matter less. Now what I'll coming back to the Cowboys, you were building up, talking about the running game, controlling the clock. I just went off on the running game on the other side. So based on two things that you said, though, do you think that coaching group, who sometimes do look a little bit basic and predictable, do you think that coaching group can effectively effectively use the running game with some success? Because when they're successful, when they've been successful this year, it's been a lot of Dak. And they do have good receivers. They have great receivers, actually. I don't know why Amari wasn't on the field very much on Sunday, but they have great receivers, actually. So do you think they can make that switch and then use it effectively?
I think, they can make that switch somewhat in the regular season. But I think you are what you are. And in the playoffs, where the games really matter and in crunch time, I just think the lack of complexity to the offense and the schemes and attacking opposing defenses, I just don't think is there. I agree that I think Jerry Jones said it at the end of this last game when they lost to the Patriots in a underlined way. He said special teams was the reason, special teams, and it comes down to coaching. And you can view it and say, was he talking about just the special teams coaching, or was he talking about the head coach? And from my perspective, coaching, when you say coaching, coaching it falls under the larger umbrella of the head coach. And so that coach, and he said just special teams, but I think overall, the offense. The
clapper. They call him the clapper. Jason Garrett.
Good job.
Lots of clapping. That's a good job. So I agree. I think another problem, and we'll work Dallas into the playoff picture because we'll talk about the other teams too. What Dallas is going to run into too is they're not going to have a home game. So if the playoffs, I'm doing this out of memory, but if the playoffs started today, they might be playing Green Bay in Green Bay. I think the Seahawks have one less loss than Green Bay. Or not the Seahawks. The Saints have one less loss than Green Bay, so they would probably get the bye week. So Dallas would as the way it looks right now, and if we take Week 12, obviously no one's hot on the Packers right now. If we take the Week 12 the way it looks, Dallas is either going to have to play in Seattle, which at least historically has been a hard place to play at home, or they're going to have to play in weather against Green Bay. And I don't know that they figured it out They tend to look good against bad teams. We should have pulled up the record against over 500 teams, but we've seen this Dallas, and we've seen it with actually all these NFC teams, maybe with the exception of the Seahawks. We've seen them look really good, and we've seen them look really bad. So it's a big, and the 49ers, pardon me. Those two teams, they've looked consistently good with only a couple, with a loss here and there. But we've seen the Saints, we've seen Dallas, we've seen the Packers a couple weeks in the last 3 or 4 weeks just look really bad when we've also seen them look really good. And Dallas is in the worst situation because they probably have to end up in either Seattle or Green Bay and play a road game. So I don't know if they figure it out against.
And let me just say, if that is the case, I don't see them winning either one of those games.
Yeah, especially I wouldn't doubt for me it's a little bit harder because we're going to talk about the Packers in a little bit. I don't know that the Packers could beat Dallas in Dallas. That would be a little bit harder. If depending on if the coaching staff can figure it out, because we've seen a mediocre team like the Chargers really smash the Packers, and then we've seen a really good team handle the Packers. So the Packers can look really good. But if you just figure out that little thing, LaFleur hasn't been able to seem to figure out or make adjustments like the Belichicks of the world yet. And to me, that's a young coaching thing because we also saw the Rams not able to make adjustments right in the Super Bowl. So I agree. I think they lose. I think that at home in weather in Green Bay, they probably lose. But I think it's close enough that if the Packers ended up in Dallas, that it'd probably be a negative for them.
I think you're giving the Cowboys a little too much credit. I mean, let's be honest; they lost to the Jets.
Well, who lost to the Jets? Who lost to the Jets this week?
Who did lose to the Jets this week?
Was it the Raiders? But the Jets have looked good recently.
They've looked decent, and my thing is, if you
they murdered the Raiders. The Raiders have looked decent, and they murdered the Raiders 34-3. So
speaking of the Raiders, I just think Gruden and Carr, they really aren't on the same page. I think.
Well, this is a Vegas.
You're probably going to see him out of there.
This is a Vegas Carr, you mean? But this is we're not going to go to the Raiders in this show, but this is a Vegas-based show, so we'll be talking a lot about the Raiders from the off season. So we'll hold off on them because they're a year or two away still, and I think we agree with that. Let's go to the other side of that game. Let's go to the Patriots. Now, and let's not only go to the other side of that game, but let's talk about both sides of the ball for the Patriots.
Okay, so let me give you my perspective briefly on that.
Let me set it up. And then you get it out. So the Patriots are an elite defense. The offense hasn't really clicked, but they still have one of the greatest ever. Edelman's there. There's still weapons over there. People saying that Brady doesn't have receivers a little bit false to me, although obviously it could be a lot better. I've seen him do better with worse. He seems completely healthy, but the offense is not clicking, but the defense is clicking in all cylinders. And then we all know a lot of players on that team, especially on the offensive side, can really turn it on for the playoffs. Brady, of course, always does. And the defense is elite. At least it looks elite of the teams that they're playing. So go ahead and throw in your perspective on both sides of the ball, and then in the context of the playoffs. Let's do the context of the playoffs.
Well, we'll talk about the defense first. I think their defense obviously is good. I think they excel in red zone defense. They're phenomenal at red zone defense. They'll bend, but they will not break, and that's always impressive, and that'll get you far in the playoffs. The problem
with that wall behind you.
The problem, I think, is offensively. I think they lack the deep threat. They've shortened the game where if you don't have a deep threat, you can't play that middle game, those screens. You can't play those bubble screens and dink and dunk to those slant receivers and things that Tom Brady loves and he has amazing chemistry with. That's the problem. And what's odd to me is this, that they let go of Antonio Brown and they also let go of Josh Gordon, who gave them a deep threat. So by them doing that, that tells me that Bill Belichick is either arrogant enough to assume that he and Tom Brady can get The young kid from Arizona State, is it Harry? The young wide receiver that they just drafted. That tells
he had a
me
great
that
catch. He had a great catch.
Right. So that tells me they believe that they can get him on the right page. Harry. Yeah. Shout out Arizona State, by the way. They got Herman Edwards as the head coach, so they should have a lot of talent flourishing from that area. But I think that if they can get that kid on the page that they need for the playoffs, and get him playoff ready to be that deep threat, I think they'll find a lot more success offensively.
So I'll counter that a little. Now we know why they wanted Antonio Brown, obviously, because they're going to take some baggage, and then new baggage showed up like the day they signed him. So we know why they let him go. Josh Gordon, there's something wrong. Either he's not in play shape, either he was doing something behind the scenes, they didn't want to deal with it. Something was going on there. They had Josh Gordon the whole year, so they had a deep threat for a lot of the time, and the offense looked really bad at the beginning of the year, to the point where I thought Tom Brady was past his prime. Now I've seen him play, and although the numbers haven't been there, we'll talk about this game in a little bit, but him and Aaron Rodgers seem to be having the same issue. So the deep threat, I just can't agree with it, because in all these 19 years, Tom Brady hasn't always had a deep threat. Who was it last year? Chris Hogan? Who was the deep threat last year? Chris Hogan? There's like 14 white receivers.
It is the most white receivers in the league. But they did have Josh Gordon for a portion of the year, right?
And portion of the year, but I don't remember.
But the other thing is that they're a big two tight end set team. And I think that's also, that gave them somewhat of a deep threat as well.
They haven't been that. They haven't been that either. The tight end obviously is big, but we've seen Brady win in the regular season and out of the regular season with Gronk hurt or not 100%. I think he has the guy he really needs. I think he has Julian Edelman, and I think they'll figure it out in the playoffs. To be honest, I think suddenly we're going to start seeing.
Because if you can't,
but I don't think the deep threat's an issue.
I'm going to tell you why I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. I think the Cowboys' defense is, in all actuality, really not that good. And they were unable to score on them consistently and put up points. I think that if you eliminate a deep threat, if you don't have a true deep threat, you shorten the range of field that you could actually play and find success in. If you widen that, it opens up a field of opportunities to score and make plays. I think not having a deep threat is what they're missing.
I mean, in general, and we'll leave it at that, right? Because we'll just keep going back and forth. So in general, I agree with you. With the Patriots, I've just seen it not happen. And then also, just as a final word on they should have been able to score consistently on the Cowboys. One, they haven't been able to consistently score on worse teams anyway. And then two, that's probably the worst weather game of the year so far was that game. So no matter what, you're going to have a low-scoring game. They could have been playing Kansas City, and there probably only been 14 more points on the board. So let's move on to the next game. So this one hurts, but luckily I was able to soften the blow because I think that my favorite player, Aaron Rodgers, is having a similar problem as Tom Brady this year. But let's talk Niners first. So the Niners have just blown by. I think they were a little bit of a surprise at the beginning of the year. I mean, they were to everyone for sure. They were surprised. Then we all went to the level where we thought, well, let's see them play some teams. Then they beat those teams, and now they've just continued to win with hardly any hiccups. They went up against a team that on and off throughout the year has been considered a possible Super Bowl team, and they just crushed them. I mean, they took the soul out of Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers threw something like 100 yards, somehow still had a 60 quarterback rating. I'll have opinions on that. You're crushing that microphone a lot when you're touching your. What'd you do? Work these today?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to
work up here.
Move this out of my ear.
Yeah, you're good. We could hear you, but you're hitting that. You're hitting the mic a lot. And if I'm hitting it, tell me. So I will say that the 49ers really just took the soul out of Aaron Rodgers because not only did he not only did he not throw the ball a lot, he just looked confused. He just looked like he had nothing. And I've seen that happen because the receivers aren't that good. But I didn't even see Aaron Rodgers think he had opportunities against the 49ers. I just saw 3 and outs. It looked like Mitchell Trubisky if he didn't have a hand or something. You know what I mean? Like it just looked embarrassing. That was a bad example because Mitchell Trubisky would have still thrown interceptions. He would have tried to hit it with his hand. But we'll get to the Packers in a second. Let's start with the Niners. They've been amazing. I think they're an almost sure bet for the NFC Championship. Although new team, new players, who knows what happens? Injury, anything can happen. They could be surprised in the playoffs. But right now they're looking like a sure bet for the NFC Championship. What do you think?
What I think is that they're definitely going to make the NFC Championship game. I think that they have some experience in coaching, even though Shanahan didn't find success in winning the Super Bowl. I think that it's that lack of success will drive him to find ways to win and find success. And I just think he's got the pedigree and he's been raised
the family
right. He's been groomed for this job to find success. And I think ultimately, the strength of any good team is their defensive line and their D line, and their defense is phenomenal.
It's the year of the D line, and the way that we know that. The 49ers obviously have a great D line, and it looks incredible. But the way that we know that is that no one's talking about D lines right now. But I think it's my new thing that I'm going to start looking closer into, and that we'll see even more next year. The simple fact is that just about except for the Cowboys, maybe a couple other teams, everyone complains about offensive lines, and I just think maybe it's the level of defensive line has just gone to we've just gotten to the next level there. Where the obvious place you can see it is the Niners, of course. It's just looks incredible. Now, I want to say this about the Niners, though. They haven't had the easiest schedule, but it hasn't been super bad. They got some Redskins, Browns on there, some Steelers. They played your division, and they pretty much crushed it. Bucks, but of course they have to play the Seahawks twice. They played the Packers. The Packers are going into a very easy schedule we'll talk about right now, but the 49ers are actually going into a real tough schedule. They're going to see in the last
the Ravens. They have to play the Ravens this weekend.
They're going to see in the last 5 weeks. They're going to see the Ravens. They're going to see the Saints, and they're going to see the Seahawks. And then the Falcons have been playing okay. That's at least a so-so game. The Rams look like crap. They're probably going to crush them. But Ravens, Saints, and Seahawks, that's not a slouch of a schedule there. So no. I got to think that they'll lose one of those games, and it might be the Ravens game because a defensive line that puts on pressure. That I wish Aaron Rodgers would run more, but that makes Aaron Rodgers confused and puts that pressure on. Makes him not know what to do. If that line can be beaten, it can be beaten by a person that is like Michael Vick, and that person's Lamar Jackson. So we'll see what Lamar can do.
Sad to say, as a Cleveland Brown fan, as a Cleveland Brown fan.
Yeah.
Sad to say, but the Ravens are legit. They've always had a good defense. They've always had I know we're supposed to be talking about the 49ers, but yeah. I think that if the scheming, I think this is going to be a great game this weekend, and I see the Ravens finding success and winning because I think their defense is just as good, just a little bit underrated. They don't have as many big names, but their defense has always been good over the years. They kind of plug and play, find certain position of players that are dynamic and can tackle well. They're an excellent tackling team. They got a good running game.
This game will definitely be one of the main games to be talked about on Tuesday. And if we want to do a preview later for Sunday, maybe on Friday after Thanksgiving, we'll get onto that. So I agree with you. I think that the Ravens, that's actually going to be a really fun game to watch. And even if it ends up being a boring game and the Niners, beat them 17-9 or something, it's just going to be a good matchup,
Right.
But the 49ers have it tough. they could. So the reason I brought up their schedule is because possibly the second best team in the NFC is the Seahawks. And if the Niners lose to the Ravens, like you said, and the Seahawks beat them in week 17, you might have a surprise situation where the Niners are the second place team. So when in our little text thread that Angelo's on and our other buddy Tyler's on, you freaked out when I told you that the Niners might not make that. I think that they will if I had to bet, but I can see the scenario where that doesn't happen because the Seahawks are probably the second best team and the Niners have a little bit of a hard road in front of them. And the Packers, which we'll talk about in a second, can still get the first round bye because they actually have a very easy schedule going out. So can you see that happening? I'll pull up the Seahawks schedule in a second if you want. But you got 2 games they can lose.
The reason I say I don't think that the Seahawks, I think it could be a close game, but if it goes to the playoffs, I think the Seahawks lose only because I don't think they have enough offense to contend. I think
in the playoffs.
Right, in the playoffs. And, they live and die with Russell Wilson, which is a great player to live and die with, but he can't carry a team. I mean, it's a fairly evenly matched team, game between the two of them. But I just don't know if they have enough offense yet to because they rely on the rookie wide receiver that they drafted. What was the kid that
I can't remember his name, but Tyler Lockett's not a slouch either. Let me. I'm not talking about the Seahawks in the playoffs. That's a different conversation. We'll wait till that's more clear. Here's what I'm saying is that let's say this scenario that you just said happens, right? That the Ravens beat the 49ers. And let's say that the Seahawks can beat them in week 17. That's not the playoffs yet. That's just the Seahawks in a regular season game. And it's a big game. And Russell Wilson is a big game player.
Agreed.
The Seahawks, where the 49ers have a difficult schedule, the Seahawks play the Rams, the Panthers, the Cardinals. The Vikings are okay, but they got the Rams, Panthers, Cardinals, and they got 49ers in week 17. So if it plays out the way you say, that Baltimore beats the 49ers, and then the Seahawks can beat the 49ers in week 17, I'm saying the Seahawks are the first place team, maybe with a first round bye, and the 49ers don't get a bye. They might even have to play in weather. They might have to play Green Bay again in weather. Do you think Green Bay is going to play like that again? I don't. I'm not saying that they'll beat them, but they'll have to play them in weather.
So I like that.
Yeah, that's the scenario I'm shooting out. So if you made me bet right now, I mean, I think that the 49ers are great. I'm totally bought in on them. But looking at the schedules, you're in this situation where it's at least, especially, for us that I'm an NFC fan, so I got a horse in the race, but especially for us where none of these are our favorite teams, it's like it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. And especially if one of these mediocre teams beats Seattle or one of these mediocre teams beats the 49ers too, So the scenario is just exciting right now for the NFC West and the NFC in general.
I agree. I think that, I like Russell Wilson. He's like you said, a
big game,
a guy that can win a game on his own. But I think it has to stay close. I think it has to stay close for him to find success. And I think they're relying on a couple of, some younger receivers, some younger talent. I think if they didn't lose Disley, their tight end, who was kind of Russell Wilson's safety blanket, and they weren't relying on a rookie wide receiver, I think they could.
I agree with all of that.
The good thing that they do have is consistency in their scheme and their plan and the way they play and their quarterback. So with you saying that, I mean, it could raise some questions about Garoppolo. Is he good enough in those crunch moments? I mean, right now they're winning because that defense is lights out. But can he win in a crunch scenario where a couple minutes down? I think the scheming, and that's the other thing that makes Garoppolo look good too, is Kyle Shanahan's play calling and scheming and putting his players in the right position.
So that's the other point too. In week 17, what's going to be fun to watch is now they played him earlier in the year before. This is Pete Carroll's second look, and that's a big deal in division games. You get a second look. I always pay attention to that. In fact, I think sometimes Bill Belichick throws games when he knows he might see these players again, like that Baltimore game. I'm like, Bill Belichick might have been experimenting, seeing what's work, and we're going to see something completely different. I think that happened with Kansas City last year, right? It's really interesting. I don't want to like beat this horse, but that's what makes it interesting. The 49ers look amazing, though.
Let's go on to these Packers.
Yeah, let's go on to the Packers. So all hope's not lost. If you're a Packer fan, as you guys know I am, all hope is not lost. I've been saying in the text for a long time, I'll defend Aaron Rodgers. I think he's still the player you want on your team, but he's I've been saying it all year that the Packers, when they look good and everyone's on fire. But even when they win, even when the offense is hitting on all cylinders, even when Aaron Jones is getting 4 touchdowns, I'm still like, I don't trust him. And I think that it's the same as all the teams in the NFC, with maybe the exception of the 49ers, that there are some exploitable holes. Like in the NFC right now, any given Sunday is an absolute truth. Like any given Sunday, these top 4 or 5 teams, exception of the 49ers who look great, we're going to wait for them to get beat up before we believe that they're bad. But these teams on any given Sunday can beat each other. It depends on the weather, depends on the scheme, it depends on injuries, it depends on a lot of things, but they're just so close that a lot of things can be exploited. And we've seen that with the Packers. The Chargers were able to find something to exploit, made them look terrible. The 49ers, we shouldn't be surprised by it now, and I don't think anyone is. I will tell you what I think is wrong with Aaron Rodgers, and it's that he is so, and it's the same thing with Brady, but it's more with Aaron Rodgers right now. He is so inefficient. He is so efficient. He is so good. He's just a guy that's unlikely to throw interceptions. He's going to throw the ball away. He has such a high skill level. He doesn't need to take crazy chances. The Hail Marys that he's famous for were at the end of the game. They didn't matter. And when you're playing against these defenses, or when things aren't clicking, he needs to switch to Brett Favre mode, which he's the complete opposite player. But there's a certain point when you're down 22 at the half, I know that you want to just keep plugging it away, but there's a certain point that Brett Favre, when he's throwing a lot of these interceptions, was I'm down. I understand the limitations of my team and these players. It's time to start taking chances. And with Favre, that's sometimes it made these exciting, crazy games. Russell Wilson doesn't look like Favre, but his games are similar. They're always very close. Or he throws 3 or 4 interceptions, and in Brett Favre's mind, it was, well, we were going to lose anyway. I might as well lose with 4 interceptions. At least I tried. With Aaron Rodgers, it's like he's disappointed that his receivers aren't good enough to get open against man-to-man. And so he throws the ball away, or the offensive line's injured or not as good. A defensive line like the 49ers get through and he gets sacked or hurried, and he has to do something conservative. There's a certain point, and he needs to learn, where he just needs to trust his skills and let it fly. He has them. He has them. I would like a little more scrambling. I would like the plays. To be honest, I'd like these plays to get broken so he scrambles out and has to make something happen. I remember in his heyday, those receivers, the Jordy Nelsons, the Randall Cobbs, even the lower level receivers, seemed to know that the play got broken up. They had to run towards the line of scrimmage. I don't feel, we don't see the full 22 when we're watching on TV. I don't feel like those receivers are running back on broken plays either to make plays happen. I think they're just running out and being covered. So there's a lot wrong. I don't think the Packers are going to make it to the Super Bowl. I think that they got Aaron Rodgers, so they'll always have a chance to. But I'm ready for him to stop playing conservative, especially when teams get high up on him. With that said, and I'm going to let you say a piece here. With that said, the schedule situation and their record right now sets them up nicely for the playoffs, in my opinion.
Okay. First of all, I was amused with the fact that we're talking about the Packers, of course, present day, might I add. And somehow you managed to talk about Aaron Rodgers and interject Brett Favre. So I was definitely amused. Yeah. What I want to say is I think that I could shed some light. I want to shine some light on your Packers for a moment because I think
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He's definitely one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And I don't think it's that saying it's not as bad as it looks and it's not as good as it looks. I just don't think it's as bad as you're seeing it as a fan. I think
nice.
part of the issue with the Packers is new head coach. I think one of the things that you guys are lacking is with the new head coach and the game plans and the schemes and the concepts. I think you guys are lacking team chemistry. I think that's making Aaron Rodgers a little less tentative to take those risks when throwing the football. I think with McCarthy's system and game plan, he knew it inside and out because he had played in that system for years.
And it was so bad. It was so bad that plays would get broken, and then he'd have to make a new play
because it was so basic. And so that's why I think you saw a lot more of his rolling out and improvising. So I think they have a few more games to kind of tighten up the screws on what they're doing. And again, most importantly, they have a moderately formidable defense. They have a good defense, I think. Not great. They have a good defense.
Yeah. They're not good pieces. They have good pieces.
Right. They have a good defense that can at least get Aaron Rodgers the ball back one or two times in a big game and allow him to do what he does. So I think you always have a chance. And as you said, their schedule's, a little easier. The Bears are terrible. I'm a little disappointed in Trubisky.
Me too.
This is something I recognize, and this is why I think you guys will find success. Is just recently, as any quarterback, they're good and they find success when they're protected, when the O-line protects them and they don't get hit.
Yeah.
I think Kirk Cousins with the Minnesota Vikings is a decent to pretty good quarterback when he's well protected. If you get to him and the offensive line is weak and the rush attack and the blitz schemes can get to him, I think you can find success and win games. So I think that the Packers will find success playing them as well again, as long as their defense gets home and gets to the quarterback.
Yeah, and then we could also point out that against the best defensive line, the Packers, who at best have a mediocre offensive line, their probably best offensive lineman was hurt in that game. He actually left the game and tried to come back and probably didn't look as good. I was basically sad, crying in my beer, but I was watching at a bar, so I didn't really pay attention closely to how Bulaga was playing after he came back, or how many snaps he had. But against the best defensive line, a mediocre offensive line was a little bit worse. So let's talk playoff implications here. This is their schedule coming up. It's Giants and Redskins. It's Bears, and it's the Lions, and then their only moderately difficult game is the Vikings, who I think I said the Seahawks played too. So the Packers actually have it easy, and against Kirk Cousins, what you said wasn't wrong about Kirk Cousins, but I think Kirk Cousins just, when he plays well, it seems to be when no one's watching, and when he just plays terrible in big games. And this will be a big game because it'll be Week 16, and they're right behind him. So there's a lot wrong with Kirk Cousins. I think he's overplayed what most people thought he was going to be coming out of college. You know what I mean? But let's not get onto Kirk Cousins now. But if we go to the NFL standings, which I don't know where they are now. So you see that the Packers have a pretty easy schedule. And the way it looks, if the playoffs were right now, is the Cowboys would be the 4th seed. What the hell just happened? Oh, that was scary. Okay. Whew. I clicked something here and it's scary.
The X factor for the Vikings, might I add, is Cook.
I love
their
Cook.
Running back.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, we'll see. Minnesota is, I would say, the second tier of these teams that I say can beat anyone on any given week. They're still really good. And if Case Keenum could do it, Kirk Cousins could do it, So he's not Mitchell Trubisky,
But their defense took a step back this year, I think.
I think so too. So it looks like what you got is the Packers could go 13-3. That's essentially what I'm trying to say here. So those last 5 games, those are all winnable for the Packers, where we saw the Niners have it a little bit tough. So it won't be crazy the Packers go 13-3. Maybe they go 12, maybe they can go 12-4. Maybe they've fallen apart and the 49ers exposed them, and every coach knows. But going 12-4 isn't crazy. If they go 12-4,
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Based on that record that you projected, was Mike McCarthy really that bad as a head coach that they can not make the playoffs? Did they make the playoffs last year, the Packers?
No, they play terrible. But there's a couple of things. It's not only scheme for Mike McCarthy, it was breaking down. The relationship between them was breaking down. Yeah. And I think it was always, to be honest, I think it was always a little sketchy because, I'll be honest, because they didn't pick Aaron Rodgers on his favorite team in 2006. I think it was always a little bit sketchy. But Mike McCarthy, there was always these things that made Aaron Rodgers feel a little better. Mike McCarthy chose Aaron Rodgers, over a Brett Favre that wasn't done, that still made it to the NFC Championship a couple years later. They were winning and making the playoffs most years. So I think it fell apart, the relationship last year. And also, what people don't understand, even though the fracture wasn't load bearing, he can walk on it and obviously play NFL football. He had a fracture in his knee. He had it the whole year. From year 1, there was a fracture in his leg. So he was not the Aaron Rodgers he normally was, and he's only looked at sometimes this year. But I think that's more of who he's playing and new coach, like you said, right? But last year were those things, plus the Bears were really good. Like the Bears, who knows? It's like the defense aura left the Bears and entered the 49ers because the teams didn't change that much. But it just left them and just went to the 49ers.
We will say the Packers did get some free agents on defense that helped out in a new coaching scheme. So their defense is significantly better too this year than
that's why I said pieces. The Smith brothers, they're not brothers, but Ladarius Smith and Preston Smith, they're not brothers, but they're huge. They make big plays, and that's what happens. That's what you're actually talking about. So the defense looked really good the beginning of the year. It looks sketchy middle of the year, and then it's hit or miss. It's really when a couple players, we're a big play defense essentially. Big sacks, big pressures, third downs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we can wind this down, I think, but I think that the thesis of today, and we didn't talk very much AFC football. I don't think the Browns might not be out of it, right? We'll talk more about that. But the thesis of today is that it is wide open, and all of these teams, with the exception of the 49ers, have just looked like they've had huge holes. And schedules matter at the end of the year. We can pay close attention to those. It's going to make every one of these games exciting, even if you're not a fan of the 49ers or the Seahawks or the Packers. I've been saying it since about week 5 or 6 when I realized, man, there is parity. The NFC right now looks like what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, the NBA. Like, there's just enough parity that makes it exciting that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win in the West. To be honest, even the East looks okay. There's even some more interesting stuff happening in the East in the NBA, and that's what's happening in the NFC right now. Do you have any closing remarks?
Closing remarks.
Or did I just skip you? Did I close the show, but you had a whole bunch more to talk about?
No. I mean, the Browns, we need a win this week. We got to win out. So we're playing the Steelers. I just want to beat the Steelers up because this will be the first time since the late 90s that the Browns beat the Steelers in consecutive games. So this is a big weekend. Weekend.
Well, this is just for your heart. Dude, you guys aren't out of the playoff race. It's a little bit of a long shot. Yeah, you're in the hunt.
Well, the good thing is our schedule. If you look at the schedule, it's pretty easy. We do play the Cardinals this year. We play the Cardinals. We still have yet to play the Bengals. We still got the Bengals, I think, twice actually.
Should have them twice, yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are 5-6, but the Colts are in second place. So if you look, let's say wild card is your hope. So Bills are a for sure wild card, but the Colts are 6-5. The Titans are 6-5. I don't know how the hell that's happening. And the Raiders are 6-5. So you get a little win streak going on, easy schedule, which actually that's been the talk of the town, that the Browns actually have an easy schedule. They've actually worked through some tough games in these 12 weeks, and now they can maybe start rolling, maybe get some momentum. And if the ball falls in your court with some of these other teams getting big losses, we know the Raiders can lose. The Browns might just sneak into the playoffs. And
that's all I ask for as a fan is get to the playoffs. That would have been a successful season for me. I never talked about Super Bowl.
Browns fans were careful about that. I'll back you guys up, because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, the Browns were like Super Bowl or bust this year. No, Browns fans are. Even Stipe was like, what's your expectation today? Even Stipe Miocic, heavyweight champion from Cleveland, goes, I'd like to win a playoff game, but I'll be happy if we make the playoffs, is what he said.
Yeah, that's all I want is that let's make the playoffs. I think we finally know now that it's later on in the season, we know who we are as a team. And I think some of the kinks are being worked out, and some of the chemistry is building. And that's huge, coaching and chemistry. Our minus right now is coaching, lack of experience. But hey, NBA is looking good. I'm excited. Turkey Day's coming up. We got some big games on Sunday.
We didn't even preview.
Looking forward to seeing the Cowboys lose to the Bills. And, of course, the Lions play, of course. Who they played,
The Lions play the Bears. The Bears.
Oh, so that should be a win. That should be a win. And I'm pretty excited to see Ohio State get another victory against Michigan. Shout out Michigan. Hey, can you do me a favor, Michigan? Go ahead and release Harbaugh so he can become the coach of the Browns. I'd like that very much.
He's going to go over state line to the armpit, to Minnesota, to Michigan's armpit, I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting tired.
Great talk,
dude. Thank you for being up here so late.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is the Chaotic Sports live stream. Find us on Twitter at Chaotic Sports and Chaotic Wagers. Find Wayne right there, with all those goddamn underscores. And you could also find me at Chris Sard on Twitter. You guys have a great night. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful evening. Later. How the fuck do you stop this stream?